Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. My name is Joe Moretti. I am part of the business development team here at AmeriCollect. We are thrilled to have you join us for today's webinar titled 12 Tactics for Conflict Resolution. We understand conflict and tough conversations can arise when calling patients to collect payment on their accounts, and we understand how difficult these calls can be. That's why today we're providing you with 12 tactics to help you navigate these conversations to help keep calls on track to receive payment. If you have any questions during the webinar, please feel free to submit those questions into the chat, and we will make sure to leave time at the end of the webinar to answer those questions. I am excited to have our very own Travis Gauthier, our training manager here at AmeriCollect, today to walk us through these 12 steps. Travis has been with AmeriCollect for 3 years with our operations team and is responsible for new hire training and ongoing training for AmeriCollect team members. I personally have had the pleasure of hearing this presentation once before, and I will say you are in for a real treat. With that, it is now my pleasure to turn things over to Travis.
Ridiculously nice collections is what we were after. And again, managing the phone call is what we really spend time with our collectors and our early out reps. So briefly about myself, training and quality has been most of my career, about 12 years prior to that sales. I come from the lean team, as well as dealing with a lot of the e-learning and LMS. And a little bit about me personally, the pictures there, you see my family, young man, as well as our dogs. So about our organization, we really live our core values. And as you can see, our purpose statement, our ridiculously nice teammates, educate patients, help them improve their financial well-being, resulting in revenue recovery for our clients and reduced healthcare costs for everyone. Really, everything is completely built around the ridiculously nice. So of course, what you're here today is to go over 12 tactics and things to think about. And whether you're in leadership, coaching, or if you're in the front line actually talking to patients and consumers, these are great things to use, because once you create a united front, it allows everyone to kind of speak the same languages, that your patients have the same experience. So let's get started with tactic number 1. I'd like everyone to think, those of you who've been working from home since all of this started, and thinking about maybe your animals. And if you think about, say, like a dog or cat, and how used to they've had you at home, or how much you've enjoyed having them. So if we look at the next slide here, I think about if your dog or your cat had to call a call center. As we're looking at the cartoon here, you can certainly see that there's a bit of a panic, and that they're not really sure maybe what to say. But the first tactic that we recommend is to really look at building a winning script. So tactic number 1, work on building some form of winning script. And how you do that is you create standard dialogue. You create dialogue that everyone is speaking the same languages, you have an outline, and you make sure that it's specific to what you as an organization want to display to those patients. When you're creating this dialogue, things evolve, right? I mean, 2 years ago, we might have never thought about COVID-19. So, that's a prime example of something that needs to be reviewed frequently, and it needs to evolve as time goes on. Previously, that was never something that was in our repertoire, and all of a sudden, like that, COVID becomes a thing. So we had to update, we had to evolve, and make sure that they're comfortable with the scripting, and make sure that it's consistent. Work with your trainers, your coaches, your leaders. It really only works if everybody's on the same page and everyone is speaking that same dialogue. And of course, the biggest thing from the training and quality side is role play, role play, role play. If you have them go out there and just start reading it, unfortunately what happens is they start sounding robotic. And really what you want is consistent messaging for patients and consumers, regardless of who they talk to and when they call in. You want to make sure that you're confident from those reps, that they sound confident, that they're sure of what they're saying. And of course, it's fair to everyone that calls in. Can you think of a time when you've called a call center and you've gotten different answers, or you've talked to different people and they have different interpretations? Really doesn't seem fair necessarily to yourself or the people who are dealing with those escalated situations the second time around. And of course, a lot of times with this dialogue, you can certainly get into the very robotic. Thank you for calling our call center today, right? It's very robotic, and that's not what people want. People want the ability to speak to a person. They can't It can't get empathy from a computer as much as you try with your IVRs, all right? The whole premise of this building a winning script is really being people. And that's why we staff individuals and help them learn this dialogue as more of an outline. Tactic number 2. I ask you, have you ever listened to calls or have you ever walked around your call center and someone's kind of slouching? And when they're on the phone, they go, "Hi, thank you for calling AmeriCollect. The debt collector whose calls may be recorded and there's only time to collect the debt." No, have some energy. Make that part of your culture. Figure out what you can do to inspire people and to get that type of energy. Now, we're not talking like this crazy, "I think we're calling AmeriCollect. Thank you, thank you." There's a balance, right? And we want to make sure that you have the appropriate amount of energy to provide an experience. Everyone has their mission statement, their catchphrases, or their internal dialogue. And you really want to make sure that you have a little bit of energy to give that positive experience. As it relates to the revenue, you want to make sure that people are in a positive mindset, because if they're upset or you're not giving them a good experience, they might not be as willing to actually make a payment or as much as they would have had you provided a little energy. Of course, as we saw, when I start getting crazy and get going, you can't be over the top. You have to find balance. You have to be genuine. One of the things that my wife has said to me for years being in call center was, "Don't forget to talk with a smile." And, really it is one of those things that, over time you're like, oh, but it really does help. It's amazing when you start talking with a smile, how people react to that smile. If I look at you and go, "Hi, thank you for calling today. Hi, thank you for calling today." There's a big difference in the two statements. So what do you do to get your energy? Is it coffee? Do you go for a walk? Do you provide your reps energy walks for short little windows of time? Yeah, it takes them off the phone, but what is the value that it's getting? How do you inspire your team to have some energy and get ready to take call after call in a monotonous type of role? Tactic number 3. If I start talking to you in a little bit more of a sharp, fast tone, naturally, human behavior starts to raise the shoulders. People get a little bit nervous. But if I stop and I explain to you, yes, this is exactly what it is that we're talking about today, and we're trying to tell you, and it's a rounded out statement. It's one of those type of tone mechanisms. Speed and tone matter. So tactic number 3 specifically talks about your speed and your tone. These are things that you can do, especially when being on the phone and you can't see the face. This is how you can drive individuals to the end result that you're looking for. So when dealing with speed and tone, here's some things you really want to avoid. Interrupting and talking over your patient. People love that. They love it when they're interrupted. Gosh, as a parent, I love it when my kids interrupt when I'm trying to tell them something. So you can certainly avoid getting them into that negative mindset by listening first and not interrupting or talking over. Sometimes, individuals, when they become escalated, they start getting a little bit like, sir, if you just let me," and get louder and louder and louder. And really that only escalates more. Remember, we're trying to give them in a good mindset, bring them down. And of course, with your tone, okay, if you're, as we like to refer to as, the patient should have known, "Well, I didn't charge you this," or, "Well, you should have checked ahead of time with your insurance." These are things that naturally you're just making a statement, but when your tone or your speed give that mindset of "you should have known," it immediately takes away from the productivity of ultimately trying to collect the revenue. So what can you do? You can listen to the patient. That's a great start. Let them finish their statement before you speak next. But soften your tone, round out your tone. Make sure you're still providing a quality service, but make it a little bit more soft. And most importantly, especially if it's not the most positive message, slow down. People generally, when they're nervous or they're quick to give a bad statement, they speed up. And then they have to repeat themselves, which creates more confusion. So tone and speed are huge tools that you can use. Again, back to the empathy, you can certainly show empathy with your tone. Wow, sorry to hear that. That must be very difficult. I'm sorry to hear that. It must be very difficult. Simply making a statement with the appropriate tone can really provide somebody that message. So speaking of tone, when we work with new collectors or early out, we refer to what's called 3 personalities of tone. And you can use 3 and start with 3, and you can toggle between the 3. But the first specific personality is what we like to call happy-go-lucky bubbly. This is the one where things are good. Most often, when you're doing your introduction, when things are going well, it's happy-go-lucky. This is your customer service voice. When things become escalated, without getting too late night jazz DJ, hi, this is AmeriCollect's 105.7 Jazz Radio. You can actually use your tone and speed appropriately, similar to that of a late night jazz DJ, and you're ultimately trying to de-escalate the situation, bring them back down to when they're thinking clearly, so you can have a bit more of a negotiation on their payment plan or on their actual listing. Firm negotiator is number 3. And this is one where you can be a little bit more sharp. You can be a little bit more specific with your tone. And when you're negotiating, your tone at the end of your statement should always go down. And this is when you're ready to start talking payments, using assumptions. Again, when you're firm negotiating, you can be a little bit more sharp, a little bit more passive aggressive. And when you're ready to make a recommendation, you go down at the end. Let me give you a couple examples. The first one is happy-go-lucky bubbly. Hi, good morning. Thank you so much for calling Hospital Financial Services. We offer financial assistance to those who qualify, and my calls may be recorded. How can I help you? Of course, I'd be happy to help. Let's start with your date of birth, and we can review. You'll notice how it's very customer service. It's a little more bubbly. It has a little bit more of the up to it. These are the most common with your customer service side. Late night jazz DJ, again, is when someone is escalated and you need to maybe bring them down a bit. Alexis, I'd be happy to explain the process for you. The bill generated was after insurance. As I see, you do have co-insurance commitment. It appears your insurance covered $1,340 and your responsibility is, hey, only $350. Now, does that help explain the confusion? It's soft. It's trying to help them come down. We're providing them an explanation. And you got to keep in mind, okay, these are not bad people. Sometimes they're just in hard times. Maybe they didn't expect to get a bill. Maybe they didn't expect to get a statement. Maybe they thought insurance would have covered it. So it is okay to provide that soft tone, that late night DJ, and bring them back down. And when you're ready to move to firm negotiator, now mind you, we brought them down or we're still in a good happy-go-lucky customer service voice. When we're ready to discuss payment plans, be a little bit more firm, give those recommendations. And when you're at the end of the statement, go down as if there's no other choice. All right, glad I could explain that for you. Now, the balance is $3,450. Do you want to pay that in full, or is next Friday better? When you go down, it almost closes the door as if there's really no option, and it requires them to tell you otherwise. Sure, I completely understand. Now, we can either do payment plans of $245.50 a month, or we could do $193.90 a month. Which of those work better for you? You're using your tone to be a little bit more firm on the negotiation, especially when talking about payments and the payment. Tactic number 4. I've been married now for 4 years, my lovely wife. I will say the one time that I see her react emotionally is when I take my socks off and it's time to veg out on the couch. If I throw them on the floor, I know for sure that there's going to be a bit of a reaction emotionally. But bringing it back into the call center, sometimes those things do happen. People sometimes do say things that they didn't immediately intend. And it's very important to make sure that when you're training or when you're going over these things with your call center reps, they're trained to not react emotionally. What can you do? You know, they might test your patience, probably will, right? They simply want to be heard. And again, it is our duty to help educate or help bring them back to the money in order to help their financial situation. So there's a variety of things that you can potentially do to treat them objectively or help them solve the problem. And again, it's role playing, going over a variety of situations, pulling calls to prep them ahead of time. But some of the very simple things that you can do to help your reps not react emotionally, encourage them to set up their desk and to decorate it with things like pictures of vacation or the beach or things that just make them happy. at AmeriCollect, we have what's called our coworker experience team. And that committee, what they do is they send little things to keep people engaged, or little things to set at the desk to look at and make them happy. Sometimes stress balls, sometimes little fidget spinners, things that can allow them to take these emotions and have a different channel. So when the time comes where they do run across that adversity, they're not lashing back, or they're not quick to respond in a way that maybe isn't aligned with your values as an organization. Somehow, people do still react emotionally, and really there's nothing productive. As a matter of fact, you're really only going to escalate more. So anything that you can do to stay calm and find that happy place. We give people opportunities to do energy walks in addition to their paid breaks. 2 minutes. And all they do is they get up, they walk around the house, or they do a quick little walk, get the blood pumping, and come back and get back to it. Again, we also encourage them to decorate their desk, make sure that they have a picture of something that makes them happy. So when those time comes, they look up, yes, good, move on. Some also have, a little earbud where in between calls, they play a little smooth jazz. I love it. As long as it still allows them to be productive and it still allows them to stay in a good mind space, I think we're winning with the don't react emotionally. Because ultimately what's going to happen is the situation is going to come up where someone might be a little upset. Now, as a parent, and those of you who are parents, it's probably fair to say that you're going to do anything and everything that you can for the good of your children. You might want to defend them, or maybe you just call in because they got a listing, whether it be they got a statement from a hospital, or maybe they got a listing from collections, and they call in and say, well, why does my 18-year-old son, who's in college, by the way, get billed separately? I pay the bills. He lives under my roof. How dare you send this to him and stress him out? Also, he's on my insurance until age 26. He's a 4.0 student, by the way. It's a great opportunity to use your personalities. Hey, when your son turns 18, a new right is managing your own medical bills and being protected by what's called HIPAA. If your son would want to share the details of his visit with you, all he'd have to do is give us a call and give you permission. So to set your expectations, though, the account will still need to be in his name. If you just have him give us a call, we can go from there. You can really toggle between these personalities, whether it's happy-go-lucky, late-night jazz to de-escalate, and then firm negotiator when you're ready to talk payment plans or to give them a statement, as there's really no other option. Tactic number 5. In the root of the problem. A lot of times people call in and immediately they start with, well, I don't think I owe this. Okay, that's certainly one potential solution. However, what's the real underlying cause here? Is it that they feel that insurance should have covered it in full, or they should have covered more? Is it that they feel it was a preventative exam or a yearly annual exam that maybe they should be getting billed for? Really, what is the root of the problem? And a lot of times people aren't upfront. Now, sometimes they call in and they'll tell you dead set, I have insurance, you should have not be billing from this, I want this removed. But sometimes they call in and they're not sure why they're upset. They just know that they got this bill and they're confused. They're not sure what I'm being billed for, what was the procedure. They are very confused in most instances. So we do need to educate them, but ultimately find the root of the problem. Gather the information, look at the statement, look at their explanation of benefits, and help them make sense. And so that way you can then move to more of a negotiation as opposed to de-escalation. Find the root cause. Whatever is holding up the end result of making the payment, once you address it and help them find some sort of clarity, it is amazing how often people are willing to settle once they understand it. You can use statements, okay, so what I'm hearing is, or something along the lines to help get to the root of the problem, because once you understand their issue, it is much easier to recap and help them then move to the next phase, which is acceptance. And now we can start getting into payment plans or settling in full. I love this picture. It's of an oil change. And I think of an oil change very similar to a preventative exam. If you go for an oil change, they typically tell you, okay, it's going to be about $50. We'll see you in an hour. When you come back in an hour, they got your oil change done. If you came back in an hour and they did your oil change, replaced your tires, and went ahead and did your brake lines, you're going to be pretty upset because they're going to be billing you for it. Very similar to a preventative exam. And as we kind of work with our early out reps as it relates to, I have insurance and this was an annual visit with my doctor, you shouldn't be billing me for this. That's generally what we refer to as preventative turns problematic. And this is where I get in my soap opera doctor thing and go, is there anything else that's bothering you today? And a lot of times people don't understand that if you bring up additional issues outside of your preventative exam, chances are it might get listed differently by insurance, and instead of them covering it 100% in full, you might now have some responsibility. Ultimately, helping them understand or finding the root of that problem is a great way then to bring it back to the money. So for example, someone calls in and says, hi, I had my yearly physical and my insurance company told me that this is free. You should not be billing me for this. I want this bill removed. You know what? As a matter of fact, I'm going to go ahead and switch clinics because you're charging me things that I just simply don't owe. And again, back to our late night DJ and to help get them down a bit. Well, you know what? When you were in the office for your yearly exam, it does look like the doctor discussed a different issue that was not related to your yearly at the same time. Looks like there was a diagnosis for a torn rotator cuff. Well, yeah, the doctor asked if I had any other issues. When I was younger, I played football, checked out my rotator cuff because my shoulder's been clicking. Wait, I'm sorry. So you charge me for that? That's absolutely crazy. Okay, sure, I can help explain. When the doctor does a diagnosis, it's listed differently by insurance, and it does look like you still have some deductible to meet. The yearly preventative was actually covered fully by insurance. Hey, at least you saved some time getting it all in one appointment. So we can take care of the balance with a credit card, or would you rather go online to MyTurn? The prime example for you to toggle between these personalities when appropriate. It does take some practice, so I do challenge you if you're going to introduce this to your collectors, your early out, or any of your reps, that you really do explain and help them understand what these personalities are meant to do and when, and then role playing. Sometimes if you don't go through the role playing process or they become comfortable, it might come off as ungenuine, and they can tell that you're trying to bounce back and forth. But the ones who are taking calls, who are invested in their development, I assure you, will role play and they will get good at it, and you won't even know that they're doing it when you're listening to the calls. Finding the root of the problem and how you say things can make the job more enjoyable, but more importantly is you really want to provide them a positive experience in the way that they view your facility. Tactic number 6. Offer options. Offer options. Offer options. When you're in any sort of role as it relates to sales, revenue recovery, whatever it is, the best way to go about, especially starting someone who's a little more timid, is to explain that they can offer options as if they have to pick one. You can certainly apologize, but you can't apologize forever. You know, if they're upset, oh, I'm sorry to hear that. If you apologize so much, they might actually think, okay, why are they apologizing? Give options. I challenge everyone to do some quick math for me. We're going to do what we call, and when we train our people, we talk about magic numbers. Not like magic, magic tricks, but numbers that are very hard to divide in your head. So here we go. I'm going to give you a number and you're going to divide by 2. 100. 250. 274. 152.74. 173.92. 241.68. The objective here is to not throw out random whole numbers like, oh yeah, we can set you up with a payment plan of $100. Okay, $100 is really easy for someone to just do quick math in their head and to come up with a different value. But if I say 152.74, most people aren't quick to do quick math in their head. Or the other thing to consider, does 152.74 seem much more of an official number than say $100? We do the same thing when we're ready to go out to eat on Friday night with my wife. Now that people are becoming vaccinated and, still keep your social distancing and of course staying safe, if we're going to go to a location and I say, okay, honey, where would you like to go to eat tonight? I don't know. Anywhere you want. Okay. How about the pizza place? Well, I don't want that. Well, I guess it's not anywhere. Or same thing with our kids, right? He loves his Spider-Man costume. No, buddy, we're not wearing Spider-Man to school. You can either wear your Puma polo or you can also wear the dinosaur shirt. Which one do you want to wear? It's everything in life, but same thing as you relate it back to the revenue cycle. If you give them two options and two official numbers that are magic numbers as if they have to pick one, the objective is that hopefully they take one. And I'll also challenge you that if you're going to pick two numbers, try to pick them a little bit higher. 241.68 and 173.92. That way you have some wiggle room there where if they're only looking to pay $100, maybe they're a little bit more willing to select, say, 135 as opposed to 100. They called in thinking that they were going to pay 100 today, but because you gave them two high options, 135 seems much more appealing than 173.92. And also, if you use the two numbers, 241 and 173, chances are they're probably going to go with the smaller value. So that way you have a little bit of wiggle room. If your minimum payment to stay in good standing, say, is $100, at least you have some room to work with and make it more of a negotiation instead of showing all of your cards right away. Hey, glad I could explain this to you. Now, would you like to take care of this today on a credit card, or would you rather direct out of an account? Giving you two options as if you have to pick one. Now, does today work for you, or would next Friday be best to pay in full? Look, I get it. I couldn't pay in full either. So we can set up a payment plan. Now, we have a couple options here. We have $173.42 a month, or we could do $123.54. Which is better for you? You're offering options as if they have to pick one. And again, with your tone, you go down at the end, really making it seem like they really don't have any other option. Now, they absolutely, without a doubt, do have options to select something smaller and select a lower payment. But again, if you're in early out, you need to make sure that it's within the payment plan policy, or if you're in bad debt, making sure that you're explaining what's going to keep them in good standing to prevent from listing to the credit file. Especially as it relates to talking to spouses. You know what? I'd want to talk to my spouse as well. So how about we set up this payment plan 2 weeks from now? That way you have the weekend to talk with your spouse. If the two of you decide on something else, you can absolutely give us a call back and make those changes. So to set it up, we can do either $213.68 a month, or tell you what, if it helps you out a little bit, we can get that down to $143.79 a month and allow them to make the decision from there. Tactic number 7. I'm just going to make the statement and then let's all laugh together. If at all possible, try and avoid putting someone on hold. Travis, you rascal. But in all seriousness, if you have to put someone on hold, can you maybe try and look ahead, be proactive and see if there's other things that might come up that you only have to put them on hold one time? Or do you have another avenue? Do any of you have chat functions like Microsoft Teams or Skype for Business? Do you have other areas that you can ask questions to a supervisor or to a resource so you still keep them on the phone? One thing that I do recommend to anyone who comes through our call centers to actually take calls is I encourage them to get insurance quotes. And I just mean whether it's your auto or renters or home insurance, but call a couple different companies and just get a quote on your auto insurance. After about 3 different quotes, you're going to learn pretty quick what you really, really like. And more importantly, you're going to learn really quick what you don't like when you're a consumer calling a call center. Because, tell you, if I call someone and I'm put on hold multiple times, especially being in this, sort of gig, I can definitely be patient, but I can't stand, please hold on the line. Your call is important to us. So important to us. We're going to ask you to continue to hold. Tactic number 8. Yes, sir. So we're going to need to check the activating mutations in the EGFR gene. This will help predict the sensitivity to your tyrosine kinase inhibitor. I think I said those words right. So those of you who are into the medical terminology and you deal with this on a daily basis, if I completely ruined those, shoot me a message after this and help coach me up. But the main concept here is avoid the jargon. Use similar terms. If someone calls in and says, "Hi, I got this medical bill," is there really any major value in going, "Oh, you got a statement from us, did you?" Yeah, I got this test done. "Oh, you got a diagnostic?" Looks like you moved my payment. "Oh, so you were reallocated to our collections department." You know, if you're trying to one up them, the objective, especially dealing with payment plans, is to not outdo them. Show them what you know. I mean, certainly educating them is important and making sure that they have a good understanding of what's going on. But really, is there any value of using medical bill or using statement? If they know it as a medical bill, perfect. We are now talking the same language. And if you say medical bill, I have no problem saying medical bill during the conversation. But maybe at the end, I can just drop a little in their ear and say, "Okay, perfect. Looks like your next statement isn't set to come until this stage," or it doesn't appear that the final statement has been sent, so you're still in good standing with your current bill. Simplify, provide them language that they understand, provide them explanation they understand. Those of you who deal with the CPT codes and ICD-10 codes and all the different things of the like, it gets elaborate. I think, what is there, like 68, if not 70,000 different ICD-10 codes now that ICD-9 is obsolete. It can get very elaborate. So simplify for them, make them understand, make them feel comfortable with you. Because remember, you're ultimately going to bring it back to the money. If you're confusing or using confusing terms or trying to one up them, it's really hard to get someone to start getting back to the payment plans. Remember your tone. Be friendly. If you do need to correct them, do it in a way as if you're not saying, "Now, Junior, we've talked about this," or, "Yeah, this is something you really should have known." Make sure you're still friendly, educate, and make sure that your tone is educating and explaining as opposed to talking down to somebody. Tactic number 9. This one sometimes can be hard. When people are backed in a corner, it is very easy to just tell someone what they want to hear. I love family holidays because I have a couple uncles who are really into the conspiracy theories, where they're just certain that people are out listening or out to get them or what have you. And it's really easy to go, "Yep, you're right, Uncle Don. Yep, oxygen is totally a myth. You're absolutely correct." And you just tell them exactly what they want to hear, because then it just avoids the argument. Well, unfortunately, right, in these circumstances, you can't just tell them exactly what they want to hear, because it might be incorrect. So be as honest as you possibly can, and certainly don't make promises on behalf of your organization that you're unable or legally can't keep. Can you think, has this ever happened to you in real life? Have you ever just said, "Yep, you're right," even though you might disagree, because you just don't want to get into the argument? Hopefully you're never dealing with that in a professional environment. As an organization, we love getting feedback from our people and to continue to hear what they're hearing from patients and consumers and do what we can to help make it better. But we never just tell them exactly what they want to hear. We make sure to tell them that there's value to why we're doing, or there's a legality to it, and this is why we follow this process. But as you're speaking with the patients and consumers, they don't need to always get into the legal or compliance things, but they just need to know that the answer is correct. There's two things that can happen if you're not being honest, or if you're giving them just exactly what they want to hear. Well, the first one is they keep calling back and getting more escalated. I think back to my other statement. Have you ever called a call center and got different answers on the same scenario? Or they just take their business elsewhere. Every time I call AmeriCollect, these people don't know what they're talking about. Now granted, they might not have choice if they're listed in collections, but you think of like the hospital. If you're currently on behalf of your hospital system, and every time they call and no one can tell them something right, there's no consistency, why don't they just go to a different facility, a different clinic, go somewhere else? Hey, you know what? That's a good question. Although I did review my policies, and this is a little unique. Let me review while I have you on the phone so we can get an answer together. That's a little bit more professional and a better way rather than saying, well, I don't know. Hey, you know what? You are important to us, and I will be transparent in admitting that I don't know the answer to that, but I would really hate to give you inaccurate direction. Please let me research in full, and I will be sure to get back with you. Is this the best number to call you back on? At least you know for sure that you're getting it right the first time, even if it's not what they wanted to hear. It might be, a situation where they didn't expect to get that statement with their responsibility, and you do have to let them know based on their benefits or based on the visit. But at the very minimum, they'll appreciate you getting right the first time. Tactic number 10. I love this one. This is where I start singing Ramblin' Man. Lord, I was born a rambling man. I know, they have me here training, not singing, but there is one exception to the interruption rule. When you're dealing with what we call the rambler. And when the rambler gets a rambling, the rambler keeps on rambling until they're done rambling. So the one tactic here when controlling the rambler is to have a firm yet professional yet polite interjection appropriately in order to make sure that the conversation doesn't go too far out into left field, but also make sure that you're bringing it back to a relevant conversation. So let me give you an example. Hi, thank you for calling this hospital. This is Linnea. How can I help you? Hey, Linnea, this is Randy. So I was at your clinic a few weeks ago, maybe it was a few months ago. I didn't really plan to go to the clinic, but you know how these things seem to happen. You see my statements. Well, I did it again. I had this minor kitchen action, resulting in lacerated tendons. We were able to fix it. Now I have this bill, and now I'm not really sure. Hey, Randy. Yeah, that's me. Okay, Randy, thank you. Tell you what, in order for me to best help you, I just will need your account number and your date of birth. We can then review your situation, and I can most certainly help you today. At least here, if you get their account number and validate the date of birth, when Randy goes off again, you at least have something to look at and you're still productive in the conversation while he goes. You're still listening to what he's saying, but you can then research and figure out maybe why he's calling today. Again, that's the one exception to the interruption rule, is if someone is just going, maintain control of that conversation. All right, we're getting close to the end here. We got 2 more, and then I'd like to potentially open it up for any questions or inquiries. Tactic number 11. For gosh sakes, build some rapport. It is very, very easy in a conversation, especially if someone is ultimately going to be brought back to the money to set up a payment plan. It is very easy to build rapport with people. There's a variety of statements, but let them know they can be people. You know, maybe 30, 40 years from now, whatever that looks like, it might be artificial intelligence for all collecting practices of sorts. But again, people can't provide empathy to a IVR, to a computer. There's nothing that really connects them other than for this next option, press 1. For this next option, press 2. In order to get to the second one, press 3. You really want to provide that 5-star experience, because I'm sure that at some point you're going to have a survey, right? And you want them to provide a positive survey to your organization, or to give that positive review when they're in the community and they're having brunch with their friends and they say, you know, I had a really great experience at this hospital. It was personable. They actually treated me as if I was a person. Some of the things that I pulled from our speech analytics tool. Hey, my best friend's name is Ralph. You know what? This is going to be a good conversation. Hey, you know what? I love Minnesota. I have family there. I've spent most of my summers there. Gosh, it's beautiful. Getting them into those locations, places you've been. Hey, do you have any plans for the summer? This one is probably best when you're researching something and you need a little bit of time to kill. Maybe ask them about their plans for the summer, so while you're researching, you're still coming off more as a person. Or simple things that people forget about. Hey, congratulations on your baby. Oh, that's your first baby? Well, congratulations. That is awesome. Or, you know what? Wow, that was a big surgery that you just got done with. And, you know, it looks like you've been going through, physical therapy. Is everything going okay? All right, awesome. Glad that we were able to get you up and moving again. Let's take a look at this listing and see what we could potentially do about getting settled. Or, you know what? Sometimes you can certainly be vulnerable. Yeah, you know what? That is a large balance. I've been there. I got through it little by little and I just chipped away. I was not able to pay in full either. So I get where you're coming from. Tell you what, let's look at a couple payment options that'll still keep you in good standing. And let's see what we can do about getting this settled for you. Building rapport is very easy, but sometimes people get so caught up in the codes and the what are they calling for, they forget to be a human. And building rapport is absolutely okay when it's done appropriately. All right, and the last tactic that we have for you, using assumptive statements. Sometimes, asking open-ended questions can sometimes get counterproductive to the end result, which is to try and set them up on some form of payment plan or, pay in full, answer the questions. Using assumptive statements as if they're going to pay in full is a great way to set the stage. How will they ever pay in full if you don't ask? And plus, if I ask to pay in full, the next statement out of their mouth might allow me to know where to go next. Can you pay in full today or is next Friday better? Well, I don't have that much money. Ah, okay. So they now had said that I don't have that much money. They didn't say I don't have any money. There's opportunity here. I'm not going to pay you, or you know what? I'm not going to pay you right now. Using an assumptive statement like you're going to pay in full now allows us to know how to drive the conversation next. Another great way of doing it too, again, back to the 5-star experience. And I think about when I was a waiter or a bartender, I would never, ever go to someone and say, how was your meal? Why? Because it really allows them to give me their experience. And chances are, if they had a bad one, they're going to tell me right away what was wrong with the meal or with the drink or what have you. But if I came there and said, all right, thank you so much for coming in. What was the best part of your meal today? I am now assuming that you had a good meal and I'm trying to get you a positive mindset. You tell me what you enjoyed about it. And you can do very similar assumptive statements in the revenue cycle or in the health care field as well. You're trying to build loyalty to your brand. You're trying to provide confirmation of a positive experience, and you're trying to set the stage for a positive mindset. Let me give you an example. If someone has multiple listings or multiple accounts with your organization, start by addressing that and be happy-go-lucky and start with a positive mindset. Hey, I can see that you've been a patient with us here for quite some time. You know what? Thank you for trusting us with your health. I know you have the opportunity to go multiple places, but you choose us and we appreciate that. Thank you for trusting us. Now, how can I help you? You know what? I can see that insurance did process, and out of that $3,450, hey, check it out. They covered $2,200 of it. Now, last time that you were here on the payment plan, it looks like we had you set up at $179 a month. Well, the good news is we can use your same HSA card and we can do a same plan. If they were previously paying $179, assume the assumptive that they're going to do the same thing again. Or the last thing is, if they did not have a good experience, don't put it down on your organization. Sometimes people are like, well, that's just our process. Well, how do we know that the process was done incorrectly? Chances are everything happened exactly the way it should, and they just need some explanation. I can see that you've been seen here multiple times, though, I'm sorry to hear that this last time was less than spectacular. We really do strive for best in class. Now, if you would please let me know your situation, I can best explain our process for you. Maybe they're not necessarily liking the process or how the process played out, but at least if you're explaining, you're still being assumptive in that we did everything correct until you let us know the situation, and then we can try and rectify it from there. I thank you for your flexibility and for your understanding as we got rolling here with the technology. We went through our 12 tactics of things that we do in-house here for our collections and early out reps to manage a phone call and really make sure that we provide that conflict resolution. If there are any questions in the chat, Joe, or if anyone has any questions or anything for us, now would be a wonderful time to inquire.
Travis, I don't see any questions for you.
Very good, Joe. Thank you. To those of you on the phone, if you do have any questions, I'll sit tight for just a moment. If you want to put them in the chat, or if we have the ability to allow you to go ahead and just ask it so I can hear it, I would love to answer any of those inquiries. Also, I would like to provide my email as well as my phone personal cell here. If anything comes up, if there's no questions now and you want to shoot me an email, shoot me a text, or give me a call and let me know what facility you're from and what the question is. I am certainly an open book, and I one of the things I love about my organization is providing knowledge not only to our internal individuals but also within our industry. And any way that we can provide value or at least help you with some of these tactics, we'd love to do so.
Travis, I do see a question that came in. The question is, what's your best response to problematic preventative where the customer says, why didn't the doctor tell me it was an extra cost?
Great question. I do believe that, at least from what we've heard internally, a lot of times it's those primary care physicians, those family doctors who are usually a little bit more upfront. But the best dialogue that we could potentially provide to them is that, a lot of times the doctors go through a checklist, and they make sure that they go through your normal things. So for example, they might check your blood pressure and listen to your lungs and things like that. And sometimes the doctors do get caught up in their normal process, and they might not even think about in the moment because they're right there to help you at that time. Sometimes the doctors might not even think about that, at the time. If someone says, for example, I've got some chest pain going on, or I've got something going on with my elbow, they're there to help. And what we do train our individuals is to have the back of the facility, have the back of the doctor, but to explain that in that moment they did provide you that service and it is listed differently. At this time, we don't have really an avenue to provide feedback direct to those doctors, but we really try and keep it in a positive mindset and let them know that we're there to help. We also try and spin it then to say that this is more of an educational experience, that going forward when you're at a preventative exam, these are the checklist items, and if you do have a specific issue that you've been having, we would potentially recommend scheduling a separate appointment. Or if you are well aware that the convenience of that appointment, just know going forward that anytime that you do bring up a separate issue, that it is something that is billable differently by insurance.
We've got a couple more questions that did trickle in, Travis. The next one is, I've tried to get my staff to offer two payment plan options. They seem to always revert back to just wanting to take what the patient initially asked for. Do you have any suggestions on effective training for that?
I do. Certainly as it relates to, so when we set it up, when we set up the training, before we get into a conversation about payment plans and who they're talking to, we usually start the conversation with asking them what they negotiate in normal life. Some of them talk about like rummage sales or the flea markets. Some of them talk about when they call the cable company and they're talking about different packages and things. And really, as a consumer, how you want to get the best price for the best amount of, or excuse me, the best price for the best service. And we start that conversation of thinking of how you negotiate and how you actually try and get that best price. And then we start relating it back into the actual payment plans. Because if someone's willing to pay $100, what's $113? Small. We start, very minimal there, where we say, all right, if you're going to set up 120, you say, I want to make a payment for 120 today. Start off by saying, we've got a couple different options, in order to get this paid off a little bit quicker, and in order to get you to stay in good standing, we would recommend $144.34. Start by small little increments. And I get you, believe me, there are many times where we work with people, and until they actually just try it and jump in the water, it really doesn't get any easier. So we role play it. As a matter of fact, we also have the ability to pull call recordings. So another great way is to have a whole vast library of calls for different things, whether it's offering options, whether it's upselling, stalls and objections, insurance disputes. And what we do is we listen to a lot of those calls, and then we can actually educate and get inspiration, allow them to role play and practice. So when the time comes, they're a little bit more confident. A lot of times it comes down back to tone. I'd like to pay $100 today. Okay, did you want to pay 115? Well, no, the way you bring it like that, it doesn't sound confident, and definitely not. So having some confidence and being able to start with a specific number. Some of our reps, instead of going off the cuff and giving a number, they write down 128.52. I'm just throwing a number, but they use that number over and over and over, so it's familiar to them. They're comfortable with it. They don't have to work on their feet so much. But anytime someone ever says $100, 128.52, give that a try.
Awesome. And there is one more question, but before we get to that, I just want to let everybody know that those that have asked if the PowerPoint will be printable along with the recorded webinar, both of those will be sent out via email tomorrow morning. The other question here, getting back to that, was how do you answer a person who wants answers to clinical questions, but that individual may not be clinically trained?
Sure. So can I maybe just inquire to that person who asked the question? Can you maybe give me an example? Are we talking like, oh, I got this listing from a radiologist, but I was never seen by those people. I was seen at this hospital. Are you referring to more of like those outsourced, or are you referring to more of they have a very specific question about what I was charged for? Can I maybe just inquire?
Yeah, we'll wait to see that come through. Excuse me, here we go. For example, what are these services for specific to line items?
I got you. Right off the top of my head, I don't know if I have an immediate answer for you, but Joe, could you maybe jot down that person's name? And if you would be so kind to provide me your email, let me just review our early out training that we work with some of our clients, because I know that we do have some specific dialogue, but we don't get too far into the weeds of, very specifics. We really try and at least provide enough to provide some education, but kind of bring it back to that money. But I do get what you're saying, that if they don't actually make sense of what they're saying, how are they ever going to pay? So Joe, could you get that for me? And I'll be more than happy to follow up on that.
Yep. And in the meantime, there was one more that came through, and I think we have time for just this one more. Related to the payment plan question, how would you handle implementing new payment plan requirements when the facility has always done a pay what you can policy?
Great question. Sometimes we're just transparent in the old process. In the past, you were able to, for example, on a $3,000 balance, maybe pay $25, and as long as you were paying your small amount, it would stay in good standing. However, the way that hospitals operate and the way that they need revenue in order to continue to provide elective services, or in this case, things like COVID-19 and vaccinations and being seen for things, each individual hospital and each individual clinic has set their own standard of payment plan policy to stay in good standing, to continue to operate at a high level. And in order for them to keep providing you those services, providing those elective services, providing service to the community in general, it's important for them to maintain that revenue. So I do understand that in the past you were able to make a $25 payment, but again, in order to continue on and provide these services, we do set forth a payment plan policy. As far as specific individuals, that change clinics, sometimes they've been going to the same doctor for the last, 15 years, and they changed clinics to a new clinic. Well, there's a variety of things that maybe they weren't, in network, and now they gotten a bill and they don't believe it, but now they're looking to call in and they're saying, well, I just want to make a $25 payment. And it all comes back to being ridiculously nice. As an organization, we're never threatening. We would never put somebody down or to use those tactics. It's all about ridiculously nice. And again, we're on behalf of our clients and hospital systems. We want to shed positive light. So if we're going to say, you know what, in order to stay in good standing, this is the minimum payment plan. And if it's not met, then it is subject to be listed with our collection.
That's all we got, Travis.
All right, very good. Thank you so much for everyone who did sign up for our webinar. We're looking forward to providing more value and more webinars in the future. Thank you so much for your understanding as we got things rolling, but we're very happy to continue to provide education to our industry, and especially with our expertise of revenue recovery. And remember, when you're out there talking to patients and consumers, make sure you're always ridiculously nice. Thank you very much.